This episode of Radical Rewind, Volume 2 is brought to you in part by Protendo. Play like a pro. Hello everyone, and welcome to the finale of Volume 2. So, if you're unaware, last time we started the development of a special little treat that would coincide with an upcoming event that I have planned. That is happening at the end of this month. My mind's drawing a blank. I don't know why. Summer special. Yeah. So you're probably wondering, what is this project anyway? Well, for those of you who actually watched, and I'm not trying to blame people, like, people have lives, so you don't have to watch. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm actually streaming a little bit earlier than usual because I'm gonna go ahead and get this out of the way. Lately I've been streaming at like 8:30, but I wanted to go ahead and do this. But here it is. So this right here is the gamepad for a console. But technically this thing is also a console in and of itself. Yeah, that's right. So the last time, which was a few nights ago, I had just finished this, which is a remarkable little handheld that also doubles as a controller. This right here, everyone, is what's called the Interfuse. Now the Interfuse gets its name because of the fact that it coincides with the PlayFuzion, which is the console it comes with. The Interfuse itself can also be used independently. Think of it sort of like a bizarre mixture of the Switch, the Steam Deck, and the Wii U. You have the Switch with the ability to use it on the go alongside the Steam Deck, but it also has the similarity to a Wii U in that you can use it with the console. Because right here, I know there's the little grill thing, but it's meant to look like a controller port, like a charged cable thing. But I should mention, these are not detachable. These are affixed to the device. And, yeah. So, this is the Interfuse. And it gets the name because it's a play on words with interface, but it's Interfuse. And I know it kind of looks a little weird here and there, but that's the best I could do because this is meant to be the headphone jack. And that's meant to be where the cable would go for the controller itself. But now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building the console itself. Now, oops, I have over there on my other desk my art journal. I have 2 sketchbooks. One of them is smaller than the other one. Way smaller, actually. And recently I actually did a sketch up of how the Interfuse in the console would look. And since this is in hydro blue, the console will also be hydro blue. One moment. Now you guys might not be able to see it very well, but Here it is. So we have the Interfuse right here, and then we have the console. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have the console standing up vertically, and then after I'm done building the console, not necessarily in the order. First I'm gonna build the console, and then flip it vertically to where it's standing up. And then I'm gonna stand this up so that way it's standing alongside it. And then after that, I'm gonna finish up the stream, which it shouldn't take too terribly long, as opposed to when I was building that. So don't expect this stream to be like 3 hours long. Because the only reason why it took so long for me to do this was because I was trying to figure out how best to approach the design, but I eventually got it. So anyway, yeah, so how we're gonna do this is pretty cool, I think. So yeah. Pardon me. Right. So, going by my own reference, yeah. So I'm actually going to have this on my lap. So if you see me every once in a while looking down, I'm looking at my sketchbook for reference. But rest assured, I know the general idea of how the design's going to look. Because on the front end of the console we have the actual frontal interface, which is the power button and the eject button, alongside the disk slot, which I should mention, I know this console isn't going to be a real thing, is for my alternative universe, or fictional universe, because it's not really alternative, or I guess it is, because this universe, Radical Earth, which I made it literally a year ago at this point, originally what I made for that world was, it was a mixture of real companies and fake companies. Well, actually at first it was real companies, but then I shifted over to real and fictional, and then I decided, you know what, I think for a more creative leeway I should probably have everything all original, but having stuff that is inspired by real-life things. So, for example, Protendo being inspired by Nintendo. Obviously, some of the stuff they have made has inspired my creation of the Protendo stuff, like the Game Ray being inspired by the GameCube. And this console, although it's not a Switch itself, it can technically switch. It just doesn't have the things like the Joy-Cons and stuff like that, because it's a 2-in-1 system. You have the main console itself, and then we have the Interfuse, which can double as its own portable device. So, yeah. Anyway, what we're gonna do is, we're gonna go ahead and make the, Okay. So. Okay. So, going by the actual drawing, what I'm going to do for this is, the main part of the console is going to be this same shade of blue. But the front part and the back are going to be a slightly lighter shade of blue. And the reason being is because, for the actual drawing I did, it was sort of a two-tone look, where, kind of like the PS5 and how, it's traditionally white and blue, black, not blue. Of course, you can maintain that same thing, except if you get the, black faceplates, then it loses that two-tone look. I'm not saying I hate that, it's just... I'm using the PS5 as reference for that two-tone idea, where it has two different colors, but for the drawing, if you looked very closely, the front part of the console had a slightly lighter shade of purple, sort of like a... I don't know exactly what kind of purple shade it was, but predominantly the console would be a darker shade. So it's much the same here, where the Interfuse itself is one solid color. But for the actual console itself, like the main unit, it would have that two-tone color for a little bit more flair, I guess. Anyway, should probably keep this on my lap. Right, so here's how we're gonna do this. We're going to slope. Right. So what we're gonna do is so this is going to be part of the actual, like, I'm gonna show the drawing again. If you look very closely, you can see what I mean by the two-tone look. You see most of the console is a darker purple, with this part being a lighter purple. And it's so that way it can help distinguish which part of the console is which. And it's still going to be the same principle for the when I'm building. It's just going to be a blue color instead of a purple. Yeah, so we're going to start with... actually, you know what? No, we're going to start with a plate. I don't mean a food plate, by the way. Right. So, what we're going to do is we're going to have... Right. So, here's what we're doing. We're gonna... Yes, that is exactly it. So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna switch over to a 4x12, because... See, this is 24 studs long, this is 12. So that means that since this is 4x12, it'll be able to fit on here twice. Excuse me. There. On this side, yeah. See, what we have here is an actual square shape. So what we're going to do is, now we're going to slightly elongate it. Not by much though. What we're gonna do though is we're actually gonna make this bottom part one layer thicker. But you'll see my reasoning. Trust me. Right. So. Okay, now let us there we go. Alright. So now that we've done that, first of all, we need to move this guy out of the way. Alright, Interfuse. There. It actually looks kind of cool. Anyway. Yeah, so, oops. Now what we're going to do is we're going to there we go. Right, so now you're going to yeah, there we go. There we go. And now the other side. Now, this is where the fun begins. Because now what I get to do is I think you're gonna like what I'm about to do. So, I know in the drawing it looks like the frontal interface is curved, and it kind of is, but what I'm actually gonna be doing is a little bit more interesting, and I think it'll look pretty satisfying. So we're going to. Oh, wait. Yeah, that won't work. Okay. So, my idea is that the frontal interface itself will be protruding slightly forward from the actual console. Now, the back end will be different. It's not going to be the same way. But the general idea for this is that it'll be protruding forward a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to need brackets. Now the reason being is because these brackets will be the controller ports. And actually, I think yeah. There we go. Because see, what I'm gonna be going for is that the controller ports themselves are right there. And so what I'm going to be doing is that yeah, there it is. So now we just need 3 more of those, and that's the 4 controller ports. But so far, it seems like a really, really good idea. Anyway, getting back to the subject. I think this is going to turn out really well. make no mistake. Oh, yay. Someone added me. Okay, so controller port 2, 3. Okay. 2, 3, 4. Damn it. No. Didn't you just say when that happens? Like, you try to do something and you kind of sort of do it, but you do it the wrong way. That's the situation here. Because what'll happen is, if you misplace a thing and then you have to remove it or move it somewhere else, what'll happen is it'll reset that piece whenever you select it. It'll be like that. Where it's like that. We don't want that. We really, really, really don't want that. Come on. I was actually... That is weird. I was literally clicking on that thing and it's like, I don't want to. It's weird, man. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put these here, here, and here. Then there we go. All right. I mean, we're far from done, but this is turning out really well so far. Like, really, really good. Anyway, so now what we're gonna do is we're going to make So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and choose a different color. Starting to shape up to be something good. Yeah. I'm already in love with this, to be honest. Alright. So now what we're gonna do is make the top part. That's what I would be saying if it wasn't for the fact that we need to make a motherboard. You know what? Hold on. I need to change the color of the front part a little bit. Not much, but it'll be noticeable. There we go. Alright. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make the disk drive. Yeah. I know I said I was going to do the motherboard next, but you know what? Thinking about it, I should probably go ahead and do the disk drive first. And the power and the eject button. So, let's get to it. Starting with the aforementioned buttons. The reason why I'm doing the buttons is because, well, it makes sense. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is this. Right. So. Okay, so, you know what? I thought about this. We'll make the motherboard before we finish the actual, like, body of the system. The reason being is because, the motherboard itself is going to be smaller than what you think. Because traditionally, how I usually do motherboards is, square. This one's going to be smaller and on a slimmer profile. So I want to make sure that realistically this would be supported by all these. So there we go. Right. So this is actually where the motherboard's going to be. This little section right over here that's empty. but I think I can make it work. I know this isn't going to be a real life product, because all the stuff like Megasoft, like, I know that in real life Megasoft is actually a company, but it's not like an actual, like, it's not the same kind of company that my Megasoft is. And it's in the same way that Protendo isn't the same company as Nintendo. Like, the name is similar in a way, but they have different business practices. And while they do have gimmicks for their systems most of the time, they aren't as flawed. Because, for one, the Protendo Pro 16, wait, no, not Pro 16. The PlayFuzion in the Radical Earth universe, the thing about that console is that, okay. What I was trying to say is the PlayFuzion itself, it's so named because of the fact that it fuses two different types of gameplay. Or, not types, styles. There's console mode where, it's the traditional sit in front of your TV screen and play, but you could also bring the controller with you as its own individual unit, so that way you could play on the go. I don't know why I said like that. But the cool thing is, the system itself has two different power sources. There's not power supplies, because you know how a console will have its own dedicated power supply that you have to have plugged in? So the PlayFuzion will have two of those. There's the main one that you have plugged into the wall, it's inside the console, but the secondary one, which is also inside the console, what'll happen is the console itself has to be plugged in regardless for this to work, but what'll happen is the system itself will have additional power going to the secondary unit. And what that'll do is, if your Interfuse controller is linked up with the console, which you have to do that anyway, but what'll happen is that, it will, first of all, it'll check any ramifications, like, if you have a physical copy of a game inserted inside the console, you'll be able to play that same game on the go, because the system will recognize that, hey, there's something in the disc slot. But if you have any digital copies of games, like you have a whole library of games, you could also play those. So you could play whatever physical game is within the disk drive along with the digital games. Now, the drawback is that unless you're in an area with Wi-Fi, you wouldn't be able to play online games. Like, one of the games for the Protendo PlayFuzion is a game that's heavily inspired by Splatoon called Drench Zone. Not Drench Zone, it's called Drench Zone. It's just, whenever you say it quickly enough, it's like Drench Zone, but it's Drench Zone. But that game, for the online, for the multiplayer, it's online, unless you play locally, because you can do split screen. But, if you're in an area with Wi-Fi, as long as you're connected to that Wi-Fi, the system will be able to automatically detect that and decide to, let you play it. Anyway, so, yeah. Now, I should also mention that this system doesn't use the traditional discs. It actually uses a proprietary physical media, kind of like the flash media diskette that Megasoft computers are known for. But this physical media is called the Protendo Fuse card, and it's called that because it's a proprietary game cartridge-like device that can only be used in the Protendo PlayFuzion. And what it does is it's essentially like a disc, but it's not a disc. It's an actual like card-shaped cartridge. So think of it sort of like a Nintendo Switch cartridge, but larger, around the same size as a floppy disk. And it goes into this little slot, and inside the cartridge is a small disc, which if you were to disassemble the actual cartridge, you would actually see that the disc itself is an actual like disc. It's not a floppy disk, it's an actual like disc. And not only that, but there's actually a small clear panel that you can see from the front that shows the game itself. So this physical media takes influence from the PlayStation Portable's UMD, you know, the Universal Media Disc, I think is what it's called. So it's very similar to that in that regard. But other than that, it's the replacement for the need for discs which can easily be scratched and stuff. So it's Protendo's answer to that concern. Because the discs themselves cannot be scratched easily. Because here's the cool thing. The only point of contact that can really be messed up is actually the contact point at the bottom of the fuse card. And so what'll happen is you have to make sure that area is not dirty at all. Because if it gets dirty by any kind of contaminants and you don't clean it properly, it'll make it to where the fuse card won't work. So that's the only downside to it, but other than that, as long as you keep proper maintenance with it, it'll be completely fine. I'm smart. Yeah. Wait. Oh my gosh, wow. Okay. So, bracket time. Now, hopefully this actually works. It will not work. Okay. Well then, plan B. We're going to do this and then do the bracket. I'm gonna say brasket. Basketball. Alright. So this right here is actually meant to be the reading strip right here that I'm building. Now the reading strip itself will, as the name would imply, read the data that's on the fuse card. And it also has a built-in anti-piracy system that will detect whether or not the copy that it is looking at is legitimate. If someone happens to have a pirated copy or an illegitimate copy of a game, it will automatically eject the game from the fuse card slot. and it will notify the user that they have attempted to use illegitimate software on this system, and as such, it won't be accepted. And so what you can do is, if you happen to have that software, you can actually contact Protendo and let them know what happened, and then you can actually send it to them so that way they can investigate it. And if it is determined to be a pirated copy, you won't get in trouble, don't worry. Unless you're the one actually pirating, which is very hard to do. The fuse card itself, because of the unique design, is very, very hard to pirate the software, but this is just in case that situation should arise. They will dispose of that pirated software appropriately. Or accordingly, I think it's accordingly is what people say. So, yeah, anyway. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to Alright, now what we're going to do is, not this, Instead, what we have here is motherboard. Yeah. The you're gonna like this. So the actual motherboard itself is this. That's the RAM right there. Now, I should mention that the Protendo PlayFuzion is from an upcoming era of technology coming to the Radical Earth world called HD, otherwise known as hyperdrive. Now, the reason why it's called hyperdrive is that hyperdrive itself is a code name for the new kind of technology that is going to be on the market in the Radical Earth world that allows things to be just HD, basically. Yeah, that's literally it. So Radical Earth itself does take place in our current day. Like, it takes place present day. It's not taking place in the past, even though it's inspired by that. But the general idea of Radical Earth in terms of concept is that despite the retro vibes that it gives off, it is modern day. It's literally right now, basically. But in terms of the technology, it takes heavy influence from the olden days, but makes it new. So take, for example, the Protendo Pro 16. Despite it being a 16-bit console with 32-bit capabilities, it has modern day things that wouldn't be possible back then, like the advent of online play, the ability to have digital games on said console, stuff like that. That wasn't possible and stuff like that, but in the Radical Earth world, even though that stuff is from a more recent time, it's still technically the same kind of console of which it was inspired by. Now, for the PlayFuzion, because the thing about HD is that high definition stuff didn't take off until 2005, 2006, and the thing about Protendo is, as I said before, the name itself, along with the company and the stuff it has, are all heavily inspired by Nintendo. The thing about it is, though, the PlayFuzion is not a Wii. It is... I mean, it has gyroscopic, motion controls, because the Interfuse has a built-in infrared sensor system that will signal the console, because the console itself has a built-in IR receiver, and so that's how you can actually do motion control stuff, like, take, for example, you're playing Super Martino Racing on this console, which that's the working title for that game. It'll have motion controls as an option, but you don't have to have that on, because it's meant to be a casual racing game. It's not meant to be like a racing simulator. It's not meant to be like just turning the thing left and right to steer. But you could have that on if you want to. You don't necessarily have to, though. But the general idea for the PlayFuzion is it offers two ways to play, much like the actual Nintendo Switch, of which the console is partially based on, to a certain extent. And I know that seems kind of anachronic, or I think that's the... Hold on. Right. Anachronistic. That's the thing. Because what I was talking about earlier is that the influence of the HD era of Radical Earth, which is, again, an upcoming thing that is coming soon to the Radical Earth alternative universe, is that it takes heavy influence from the 2006 to 2012 years, but it's still modern day. And despite that, the PlayFuzion itself takes inspiration from the Nintendo Switch in a few ways, such as the Interfuse itself technically being its own dedicated device whenever it's, set up to be that. But it could also be its own controller. Heck, you could actually buy an Interfuse by itself, but it still requires the actual main console. You can't use the Interfuse by itself because it wouldn't have any console to be linked with unless you actually bought the console beforehand. So because of that, you could view the Protendo PlayFuzion as a anachronistic console because it's inspired by something that didn't exist in the time that the Wii did, because the Switch didn't come around until 2017, quite literally 5 years ago. But we're talking about a different world that has different things and stuff, so you can let that slide, right? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so motherboard, this is 16 gigs of RAM, by the way. 16. Wait. Man, I was hoping it would be able to let you do that thing. Oh, wait. It's called an illegal building technique in the Lego world, where, you apparently can't do, I mean, you can if you want to, but the reason why it's called illegal is that in no Lego set ever in the world, has there ever been an official time where what I was trying to do is, in real life you can do this. It's very, very easy. But say you have a piece just like this, and you flip it on its side. Like where it's flipped on its side, and you still have this brick like this. You could literally friction fit it onto there with no modification at all. It's just there. But that's what I mean by illegal, is that it's not illegal literally. It's not like, hey, you built a Lego thing illegally. You're going to jail for a long time. What I mean by illegal is that it's not recognized as an official building technique by Lego themselves. Pardon the voice crack. Yeah, so that's what I mean, is that it's not an officially recognized method of building by Lego. I'd imagine, though, that they probably have acknowledged it, but they haven't made it to where it's needed for any kind of Lego set, though. So that's what I mean by it being illegal. It's not illegal in the literal sense that you would get in trouble with the authorities. Otherwise, that'd be a very bizarre situation. Like, imagine if you were building a Lego project and you did that very building technique, and next thing you know, you get a pound on the door from the FBI saying, "Sir, were you building Legos recently?" "Yeah." "Can we see what it looks like?" Yeah, come right in." "Okay, looking good so far." "Sir, that is illegal. Please do not build like that. They are not meant to be built like that." "Yeah, but I don't see what's so wrong about it. It's not like it's going to cause an implosion in the universe. So just disassemble it. The whole thing? No, just the piece that you did that with. You guys always ruin the fun. But yeah, what I'm trying to get at though is that's not what I mean by illegal. Whenever I say that, it just means that it's not an officially recognized method of building with Lego stuff. So I apologize for any confusion whenever I said that. It's just I wanted to give clarification about it. Anyway, so we have the RAM, we have the chip right here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have the GPU. Yeah. These are all chips. Not the edible ones. So we have that. Okay, there we go. So there is the RAM, the graphics chip, and the core processor. There's the disk drive right there. Looking all snug. Well, what we're going to do now is we're actually going to color this. Look at that. This right here is turning out really, really good so far. And I know I said this wouldn't take very long, and so I kind of lied. No, it's not lying. It's more, I underestimated the building process because I thought it was going to be like more along the lines of a traditional console where, like, if I were to build this in real life, this would be big enough for, as I said earlier, that proprietary cartridge style system, but not for an actual disc unless the discs were small, sort of like a GameCube disc, you know. You know how small those were, right? I sure did. Seriously, them things were tiny. They're like, this is literally how big a GameCube disc would be. It's literally the size of a donut. Actually, no. A DVD would be the size of a donut. So, I don't think I've ever talked about this, but every morning I eat a couple of mini donuts. 4, usually. Unless I'm, like, on my last few mini donuts and I eat the rest of them. But a GameCube disc would probably be more approximated to the size of a mini donut, because, you know, mini donuts are the miniaturized versions of an actual donut, so it'd be more closer to the dimensions of that. So, yeah. Pardon me talking about food, it's just I wanted to give a rough estimate as to how big a GameCube disc would be. But I digress. Anyway, so now what we're going to do is I'm actually going to make the power supplies built into the system. Not built in. You'll see. So right. remember how I said earlier in the stream that it was just going to be this part that was going to be protruding out the end of the console? Disregard what I said about that, because it's going to be both ends. You'll see why in a moment. Don't worry. But trust me on this one. You'll see why. But what we're gonna do is we're going to have a voice crack. I'm sorry. Okay. Actually, no. No. Yes! There we go. Okay. So, my end goal here is to have this be most likely my most detailed project in my Lego builds. Now I know on the inside it's not that detailed, but I'm mainly talking about the exterior. Although for this I did make a battery pack. And then I put this blue piece on the back because it was slightly bigger than the battery pack, and so it'd be able to be friction fit. So if you were to build this all in real life, I mean whenever it's done, it would actually look believable, like something you could actually use, were it to be an official like product. Without the Legos, of course. I'm sorry. Anyway, but yeah, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna build the other end of the console, and then what we're gonna do, actually first I need to make the power supplies. So we have power supply 1 right here. Actually, no, this is the system power supply, and this one right here is the main power supply, so it's slightly bigger. So this is called the system power supply because it keeps the remainder of the system in check. The main power supply is what has everything else up and running. But this power supply, since it's also powered by the same source, which is the wall outlet or surge protector, it's constantly powered on unless, of course, the console is unplugged. And no, I'm not saying that whenever the console is unplugged and then plugged back in, everything about the system will be lost. That's not it at all. Instead, the console does have its own dedicated storage. Which is... wait, no. Right. So this is the dedicated storage. Right here. Those two things are the SSDs. Yeah, so it has two SSDs. It has the main SSD, which is 2 terabytes. And then it has the system software SSD, which is how the console will be updated. I know that seems kind of weird. Normally, when a console updates, it uses the main, like it uses the storage of the console itself. But for this, I came up with the idea to have 2 separate SSDs. There's the SSD that can store your game data, your games, and all that stuff. and that's this one. And that one will be color coded to gold. And so what we're going to do for the other one is it's going to be blue. And so this one is for the is for the console data. So like it would use this anytime there was a software update for the console itself. Or, you know, like anything else like the user data. So like if you have a Protendo online account, it would have it saved to this. And it also has its own integrated cloud system. So it's actually connected to Protendo Cloud, which is Protendo's proprietary cloud storage system. So you wouldn't have to worry about running out of storage on this. It's this one you have to worry about. But yeah. Anyway, so I'd actually make the power supply things. Okay. So now, what we're gonna do, why did I do that? Chose the wrong thing, man. Okay. Now then, let us do the thing. Alright. Oops. It always happens. Like, what'll happen is I try to place something, and then at the last possible second, I move the cursor, and it makes me place it in a completely different spot than I'm supposed to. And yeah, it's irritating. But it's okay though. It's perfectly fine. Okay, so there's the system power supply, and then here's the console power supply. Now by system I'm talking about like the actual like onboard systems that keep the console's diagnostics in check. This one is called the main power supply or the console power supply because it's what keeps the entirety of the console operational. So without this cannot function. So, yeah. Anyway, so now let us build. So, same general idea as the front. You know, it's going to be a stick, but it's going to have different ports. So, that's the key difference. Other than, you know, being in the back. Anyway, there we go. think what I'm gonna go ahead and do is have a voice crack again. My God, I hate that. Seriously, I'm 25 years old and I have voice cracks. Seems puberty hasn't quite finished with me, has it? Anyway, am I finished with puberty, or is puberty finished with me? That's the question. And nobody knows the answer. I sure don't. Okay. Okay. Wait. Okay. Oh, sweet. That's exactly 8 studs long. Good. It's actually very good. um... Thanks, Steam. I'm not mad about that, by the way. I'm saying that as a joke. Okay. Okay. So that is 10 studs. Okay. You stop fucking stopping me from my thing? Please? Thank you. Swear to God, if it does something else, I'm gonna get irritated. Go away. Thanks, Gabe Newell! Okay, can I please continue with the thing? I'm gonna take that as a yes. That is a yes. Okay, thank you. God, that is so irritating. Okay. Now. Wait. Oh. Okay. Okay. And we're almost done. Almost. Just a few more things. But I think you'll like them though. Oh yeah, then we have to put the little rubber feet on the bottom. But that's easier done than said. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build 2 layers of brick here. So, I know this doesn't look that believable, but if this were to be a real product, these grill-looking things would actually be the ventilation. Believe it or not. I'm back. Ow! Had to do something for a relative. Alright. Okay, now to end off this little build-a-thon. Okay, oh, by the way, I should also mention that the Protendo console right here, basically the Interfuse itself, it doesn't need like a separate charger. So traditionally with game consoles nowadays, like for example a PS5 or any other console that uses a wireless controller, they'll come with a cable that you almost a connect to the controller and then to the console, and that charges up the controller. Is the same concept of the Interfuse, in that it charges it up so you could use it on its own, but it also works as, you know, a normal controller, so you have it plugged in. But you could also use it wirelessly if you'd like to. So, yeah. We are almost done though. Wait. Yeah. you happen to hear thunder outside, we're in the middle of a storm. So don't be alarmed. There we go. But with that... Oh, wait. We're not done. We're not done. Because, I forgot something. A very, very important something. I forgot to put the feet on this thing. Right. So. Wait, hold on. Oh, there it is. Okay. There we go. And that, everyone, is the Protendo PlayFuzion. Play anywhere, play anytime with a PlayFuzion. I probably could have worded that better because that sounds too similar to the Nintendo Switch name or stuff. But the whole point is that this console, much like the inspiration of the Switch, can be used at home or on the go. There we go. So, I think with that, that is a good stopping place. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you did, like, comment, subscribe if you want. You don't have to, but it's certainly appreciated. And with that being said, I'm going to do something with this thing. I'm not going to build it in real life, don't worry. I'm actually going to render the image. So that way, oh. Yeah. Anyway, so. Yeah. With that being said, thank you very much for watching, if you happen to have watched. If you're watching this in the future, I don't mean like time traveling, but like if you happen to come across this stream in the near future or at any time, thank you very much anyway. Because trust me, this kind of stuff is fairly complicated at first, but whenever you get into the swing of things, it's really, really easy to get the hang of. And I'm very confident that anyone who wants to do this can competently do it. They don't have to worry about it being too complex. You have to take it one step at a time and really analyze what you're doing before you go on with it. Because I know I probably could have done things differently, like the power and the eject button could have been bigger, but I'm happy with the result nonetheless. And I hope you're happy with it too, because trust me, this right here is a massive undertaking just to be able to make this and this in such a good and efficient way. But yeah, that'll do it. Good night or good day, depending on where you are in the world. And I'll see you next time. Soon. With a very special episode that I've been thinking about. And it's something that I have talked about being the final episode. And you might know where I'm going with this, but stay tuned for Sunday because you won't want to miss it. It's something that recently I thought about doing, and it's something that has to do with a game series that I played as a kid on the computer, and I have a very special place in my heart for this game series. So, yeah.